Hello and welcome to our Cancer Be Gone speaker series. My name is Shona Williams and I am the host and the founder of Cancer Be Gone speaker series. I have organized a very dynamic, intelligent, and wise team of experts, all here gathered to help you on your journey to restore, revitalize, renew your body systems so that your body can do what it was designed to do, to fight for itself. If you have cancer, or if you're taking care of someone with cancer, this is the series for you. Today, I want to welcome Ann Fonfa of the Annie Appleseed Project. Ann Fonfa, good morning.
Good morning.
If I introduce you and give a little bit about your background to our audience. Ann Fonfa was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer in January of 1993 and was suffering from extreme multiple chemical sensitivity and had no symptoms from breast cancer. She ended up refusing chemotherapy, radiation, and hormonal therapies, and chose the natural strategies she had yet to learn about instead. Although the cancer recurred for years, it never actually spread. She was diagnosed with stage 4 in 1997, but as no tests were done to corroborate that, she rejected that notion as well. As time went by, she continued to feel healthy and began sharing her protocol with others. Ann soon realized that nutrition, physical activity, stress handling, detoxification, and dietary supplements would benefit anyone with cancer or really any serious illness. She put up the Annie Appleseed website in 1999 and started the nonprofit in 2003. Ann has all sorts of experience in speaking at conferences to researchers and people dealing with cancer. She's been active in many groups, and she has literally spoken at hundreds of medical research panels, conferences, and meetings. Ann has served on grant review panels and numerous committees. She also mentors other advocates, and she is proud to be an advocate of change. Welcome to Cancer Be Gone, Ann Fonfa.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and thank you. If you could just, I know I gave your background, but if you could just give us an idea of how you came to be at that stage where you could reject the negativity and embrace the positive of life and basically go on the path of health and nutrition the natural way. How did you get to that point?
26 years ago when I was diagnosed, I didn't know anybody with cancer who was alive, and there was no internet. But a good friend of mine had become an acupuncturist 2 years before. And in going to her for treatment, I was just trying to be a friend, give her some income. But in 3 months, her acupuncture work stopped my menstrual cramps. So I was pretty excited about that. And that led me to understand there were some solutions outside of Western medicine. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I was suffering, as you mentioned, from chemical sensitivity. That meant that I was reacting with a headache, dizziness, rashes, all sorts of things, sometimes loss of muscle power, from smells, from fragrance, from wet paint, from cleaning products, from people's cologne, their hairspray, their deodorant, and it was very intense. So when I found a callus, which is how I identified the breast cancer on my left breast, it wasn't painful. I was suffering much more from the sensitivity. I went and had surgery. Right? They gave me a lumpectomy. No real discussion, and I didn't ask the right questions because I didn't know what to ask. And the doctor, I've said this many times, we should have a Q&A, okay, FAQ. You tell me the list of things we should talk about, and I'll make sure you mention every single one, because no one told me that they took lymph nodes from under the arm, the axilla. So 18 lymph nodes were removed, and I had issues from that, lymphedema. But also, after surgery, I didn't sleep for 6 nights. So I had a bad reaction to the anesthesia. Because of my chemical sensitivity, it makes everything upside down. I can't take aspirin. The most basic things are wrong for me. they're too strong, they're whatever. So no sleep for 6 nights. That's not good. It's really a scary situation. So then I went to see an oncologist, like people do. And the oncologist said to me, we're going to start chemo next week. And I said, doc, I have a problem. And he said, oh, it doesn't matter. And I was like, oh, well, could I just tell you what it is before you dismiss me, before I dismiss you? But, I told him what I just said about my reactions. And I would pass out, literally. Had to be in bed 3 days a week. And he said again, oh, that doesn't matter. So I thought to myself, what am I doing here? So I left, and I didn't go back because I couldn't see having chemotherapy, which I already knew something about. My uncle had chemo. It didn't cure him, even though they presented it as, yes, he'll die if he doesn't do it. And then he died pretty quickly. So I was, sensitive to it. Anyway, I decided not to do it. But the good news is it was breast cancer, and there was a support group. So I got to talk to other women. That was amazing.
Yeah. It's a wonderful thing when you do have that support group. This is one of the reasons why the series, I decided to put the series out, because it does give you an idea of what types of questions you should be asking, because this is a new journey for some people and they have no reference, no point of reference. And so when you join those support groups, you get an idea of what other people are going through. You can share your ideas and you can share your experiences and come out a lot better with the decisions that you're going to make. But would you also share about your experience with the disease and tell about your perspectives on why cancer is running rampant across the nations? You have spoken at a lot of different congresses and meetings, and you met with institutions and organizations, and so you hear what they're saying. You kind of feel that pulse. Could you give an explanation about that and what you see is going on behind the scenes that we don't see?
Okay, so that's an interesting question, because you can never pin down your personal specific causes. I don't think there's any one cause. From what I have seen at meetings I've been to about environment, for example, the external environment with so many chemicals which are used in our food, in the water, they're in the air. I and everyone I've ever spoken to who's a patient advocate or a patient family member, we believe it's external environmental as part of it. I also believe, and I've learned this over the years, there's certain patterns of nutrition and behavior you mentioned in the beginning. So we believe that as much organic food as possible, more fruits and vegetables, less junk food. If it says added sugar, you don't want it. High fructose corn syrup, you don't want it. Those things are the internal causes of cancer, because human bodies, that's what, we are human beings, we're animals, we need fruits and vegetables. We don't need junk food. There's no nutrients there. So there's a lack of nutrients in Western countries, particularly in the US. We're not physically active, but even though we're mammals, we're supposed to be outdoors, we're supposed to be moving. We don't do much of that. We sit in the office, we've got the fluorescent lights overhead, things are not as they were. And that's harmful to us too. And then in addition, our modern world is so filled with too much noise and too much activity and what our body perceives as stress. Not too many of us sit in the forest for an hour every day and get, relaxed. So we have to find other ways to deal with stress. I think the combination of those things, plus people like me, I had suffered from constipation and digestive issues most of my life. So even going to doctors and being told, oh, twice a week, dear, that's normal for you. And I'm like, but I don't feel good, doctor. They didn't care. So those kinds of things all impact our health. The fact that so many of us are not eating appropriately, that is fresh fruits and vegetables, organic whenever possible. We're not moving enough, and we don't handle stress well. So those things, and for me, digestive issues cause the cancer problem. At meetings, there's begun to be discussions about the harms done from treatment. This is something I've been very aware of, and some of the groups I work with, I am the go-to person for adverse effects and how we have to handle them. So natural strategies, the natural world offers so many options, but our medical profession doesn't talk about it for several reasons. One is they're trained by the pharmaceutical industry. The other is there's no money involved. And that's sad but true, but they have to work for money. That's the system. I don't. I'm a volunteer advocate, and most of the advocates I know are as well. So we show people from Annie Appleseed Project We show people simple, natural things, but the evidence base for them to go with treatment. So what is complementary medicine? That's something you use during treatment to reduce the harms. If you're not doing it with treatment, it's not complementary. Afterwards, you've already got the harms. Hard to, fix it after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things I hear at meetings or talk about at meetings. That's why I go to many meetings, so that I can bring this message and make the medical community understand.
Yes, that's very important, because when we look at these meetings and these congresses and these conferences, we look at them through a broad scope, and when we are dealing with it internally, it's very very particular for whatever we're going through. So when we look at the whole scheme of things, prevention is very different from treatment, and going back to your earlier comment about your doctor not taking into consideration your particular need or your particular or your unique makeup, then we have to deal with that. We also have to deal with, where are we living? Are we living in electromagnetic fields? Is there an electric tower down the street from us? Should we be considering that? Should we be holding their feet to the fire to ask us questions like that? What does the water quality look like? Are we having, internal problems with that? We need to be making these types of statements or asking these types of questions. But as you mentioned, if you don't know what questions to ask, then how do you know how to move forward or protect your children or your future generations? So I look at the chem streams. I look at the quality of air, that we breathe. I look at the electromagnetic fields. I look at we look at the fact that people are they're very disconnected with the earth and nature and where food actually comes from. So there's cans and preservatives and all of these different things, these toxic contaminants that our body's being bombarded with all the time. And so my question really revolves around that. In these conferences, do they talk about prevention, or are they just really interested in moving you into a treatment that may or may not be the best thing for you?
So, I can't say whether it's good for any individual, but at mainstream conferences, for example, the American Society for Clinical Oncology, it's very rare to hear anything about even the simplest natural approaches, the complementary things that most of the medical centers offer, like massage, art therapy, music therapy, yoga. You don't even hear that much, sometimes the posters, but it's not discussed. It's not top of mind, as they say, so the docs don't really hear about it. But that's why my organization and the Appleseed Project and some other groups, individuals, go to the meetings so that we can share the knowledge we have. My group, we find the evidence. There's plenty of evidence to support the value of natural approaches. So with natural approaches, I mean combination of lifestyle things, holistic therapies, Eastern medicine, and environmental. We're environmental activists. Almost every advocate has to be, because it's a combination of things. We want people to have less exposure, and you have to act on that. You have to talk to your Congress people. I post on my personal Facebook page all political things you can do, as well as medical information and the evidence. There's a lot of evidence for natural approaches. That's what's sad, that people don't get to hear about it because the doctor controls access to information. Doctors even say to people, don't go to the internet, that's going to cause you problems. And I'm thinking, no, that's exactly what you need to do. Knowledge is power. Ignorance is defeat. It's a disaster. That's how I went in, knowing nothing, not understanding what they were going to do, not knowing the questions to ask. There are lots of groups that offer information. So, for example, Chris Wark, who you may have heard of, ChrisBeatCancer.com, he offers 20 questions you should ask your doctor. Very useful. And the AppleseedProject.org, my website, has the handout that I hope you're going to offer to your viewers at the end on the evidence of why you would do something to protect yourself. And you can show it to your doctor, you can share it, and the doctor could learn something. That'd be great. They're pressed for time. I'm appreciative of that. The insurance company's crushing them. They have time pressures, but they could take a minute to learn how to protect their patients. But if not, that's our job. If you're diagnosed with cancer, don't go into it without knowing you could have acupuncture, you could have turmeric or curcumin or both. You could have various, for example, resveratrol, probiotics, fish oil. Those are all things I think are great dietary supplements that just about everybody should consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So the questions are important. What you should know is important. What type of environment that you're living in is also important. And when we talk about the SAD diet, the standard American diet, and people being so far removed from natural foods, we have soda now, we have candy, and we have potato chips and all these different processed foods, boxed foods and dinners, you know, quick something. But what that does is it removes the nutrients from the original food, and you get something that is like food that will fill your stomach, but it's not quite food, you know, and it does not provide that exchange of information that the body needs. And so when you're at these meetings and advocating, what does that sound like? Like real food? Does that come up in conversation? Is that a part of these institutions' mindset at all? So those are some of the things that concern me as we move forward, because the cancer is running rampant through the nation. The cancer is also running into our youth. It's attacking younger. Okay, and so that was a brief pause. We're still recording. So I'm concerned that these institutions are looking at the youth and the increase in the onset of cancer in our youth. Do you hear anything about that?
Yeah. So I think the same issues. People are not eating real food. They're not getting nutrients.
So if you could just elaborate on that a bit for us.
Yeah, I think the reason that cancer is being diagnosed at younger ages is because we're not giving our children the nutrients they need. If children are eating cereal, they're often eating sugary cereal. They're given soda at much too young an age. If they're eating fast foods, there's almost no nutrients in that. Anything that's deep fried, you mentioned chips before, chips are garbage, soda's garbage. This is a really sad problem. If you're not eating fruits and vegetables, and the National Cancer Institute recommends a minimum of 5 a day, you're not getting anything near the nutrients you need to keep your body going. And I think our bodies are showing this up earlier and earlier. Now, of course, that combines with the external environment that we've also talked about, the various chemicals in the atmosphere, the EMF, all of the things, some of the things we may not even know. I mean, the new cell thing, the 5G, who knows what's going on with that? There's all sorts of issues. What we can control is what we eat, and we should be very careful for our children. I know that all parents want what's best for their kids. Sometimes they get confused. And I think, you know, the media helps confuse us because they'll have a different headline every week. Coffee's good, coffee's not good. This is good, that's not good, but it's the same thing over and over. The truth is, when they study a small aspect of something, you can have a different outcome. But the truth is, fresh fruits and vegetables are what count. They are what matter. And if children could be eating at least 2 fresh fruits and 2 fresh vegetables a day, that would really make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. It would make a difference. And I submit it would make a difference if we stop giving our children Pop-Tarts and cheese doodles, and that would make a difference. Give them water and let them run in the garden and play and pick a tomato or 2, you know, off the vine. That would be very good, right?
Yeah.
Those types of experiences are really important for children, and we have to just be agents for change at home. If we're agents for change at home, we will correct the problem, and so we'd have nobody else to look for help, because we would be helping ourselves. So would you please, if you could, regarding the research and the knowledge about cancer, is there really any evidence that they're looking for a cure? We have lots of, what do you call them? You know, breast cancer bike rides and all these different types of organizations that are raising money to find the cure. So when we look at those types of organizations, when you go to their meetings, what are they saying about finding a cure? Because I don't see the cure for cancer being in a pill or a drink or you know, a powder. I see the cure for cancer being in what you had mentioned in your intro: eating natural foods, managing stress, you know, getting in touch.
Hi there.
Hi, Ann.
So, yes, let me answer that, which is really interesting. I barely ever use the C word, cure. First of all, I don't think there'll ever be one cure, because all of us are a little different and we all need a little different treatment. However, a lot of the fundraising that you mentioned does not go to cure. It goes to mammography, or it goes to testing. The testing is not the same as treatment. Early detection is not prevention. Early detection is just detection. You find something, you already have it. So yeah, there's not, in my opinion, going to be any single thing that works. It's going to be a combination, but it's always, in my opinion, going to include the healthy behaviors we've been talking about. It's always going to include eating fruits and vegetables, trying to avoid junk food, deep fried food, soda, candy, ice cream, or have less of it for sure. When you have cancer and you have the PET scan, very, relatively new test, been around for a while, and they give you what they call glucose, which is sugar, and they combine it with a radioactive material, and you drink it. And the reason you get the sugar or glucose is because it gets taken to the cancer cells. Cancer cells love sugar. And then the doctor says, oh, but it doesn't matter what you eat. Like, how can that be? You're using sugar to find cancer cells because they like it a lot. They get along really well. So stop eating sugar. And that's by reading labels. If parents read labels, that would be really helpful. Then they could see what's added in. Fruit is not sugar. Fruit is a food. It offers nutrients, it offers fiber, and it then eventually becomes glucose. But everything translates into glucose at the end of the digestive process, not the beginning like sugar does.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing you say then, it's more than likely best to avoid the sugar in the beginning. Allow the body to do what it does to the food in the end, but just make sure you're putting in good stuff in the beginning. Now, what do you say about then detoxing? Because you had also mentioned, I would like to hear you talk about the detoxing and stress relief.
In 1995, I found out about juicing. Making fresh squeezed juices can only be with organic fruits and vegetables, only organic. That helps to detox the blood and the body. The coffee enemas, which we have a handout on our website, when people go to handout section, they'll find it. Coffee enemas also help cleanse the liver. Stuff like milk thistle cleanse the liver. There are herbal cleansers. There's a lot of different ways to detox. Something simple, skin brushing. You have what they call the loofah brush, and you brush toward the heart, anywhere on your skin. People often do it when they're after a shower or in the shower while their skin's a little wet. That's a way to go. Jumping on a small trampoline. They have very inexpensive trampolines these days. I don't know what it costs now, but I bought one for $49. And when you jump on a trampoline for 8 minutes, you get a cleanse, you get your lymph system flowing. The lymph system is a system that works in capillaries and blood vessels, and what it does is transport that clear liquid through our body. It's a little gel-like, and that cleanses. When there's an injury, it goes to the area to heal, and it goes through the system like our blood. It's constantly circulating and it's constantly being cleansed. So that's jumping a trampoline or even taking a walk. And taking a walk's a really cool thing to do. So those are ways to detox, and really helpful that I've gotten involved with over the years. And there's probably tons more, but people can choose from an array of things. And that's the cool thing about the natural world. There are so many paths to wellness that you can choose what you like. Acupuncture is very handy too.
Yeah, if you could talk a little bit about the acupuncture, that would be wonderful. But as far as the detoxes go, juicing is a great way to detox and to put different substances into your juice, like garlic, ginger, different things like that, that helps to alleviate toxins in your body. So there are certain foods, and we've had nutritionists on the line already talking about these different foods that impact cancer and the spreading of cancer more so than others. So we can have that comparison, but a couple of them are definitely onions, leeks, and garlic. Those types of things should definitely be questions that we're asking our doctor when they're diagnosing us with cancer. So what should we eat? What should we do? Detoxing is great. When you mentioned about the trampoline, yes, that's a wonderful way that I had never thought of. What I thought you might go into was the meditation and the yoga and the stretching, but there, like you said, are a ton of different options that we have. And it's wonderful because we're unique and different things are going to resonate differently with us as we go along our journey. And so when you talk about acupuncture, and when you talk about Eastern medicine and ancient practices, ancient Chinese medicine is what they call it, right? So let's talk about acupuncture and how it has been an amazing relief for you in your
I'm excited to do that. But first I want to say, in terms of stress reduction, if you can't get out into the forest, which most of us cannot, a poster of greenery seems to be valuable. We can fool our brains into thinking about the outdoors, which is always good for stress reduction. And as you said, there are many, many different ways to do that. I'm not much on meditation. I'm not a serene type of person. I'm an action person. However, relaxation comes in many different forms, and being kind to people, for me, is always a way to reduce stress. Now, acupuncture. In 1991, as I mentioned, my very good friend became an acupuncturist. I was just playing with her and I said, oh, let me come and be your first customer. And in 3 months, my menstrual cramps are gone. That's the most amazing thing. Who knew that could happen? Over the years, several other things have been resolved through acupuncture. In fact, the Center for Medical Services, which runs Medicare and Medicaid, has just announced they're going to cover insurance costs for acupuncture for back pain. And I'm sure this is just the start, because acupuncture, as you said, it's an ancient medicine. It's around for 6,000 years, and it can do anything that Western can do, but it does it differently. People have heard they call it meridians. They run through the whole body, and they can approach the meridian in a lot of different points. So, for example, you might have needles in your back. You might have them in your legs. You might have them in your arms. It's the same treatment in different ways, and different acupuncturists might do it differently, but that's okay because it hits the meridians and your body responds. Now, one of the interesting things in the mainstream is they have kind of forced acupuncture studies to be the treatment that's appropriate, and compared to what's called sham acupuncture, needles put in the wrong places on purpose. I'm not a fan of that at all for 2 reasons. One is, no one's really sure what sham acupuncture is doing. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it nothing? We don't know. And secondly, if acupuncture is a real treatment, and it is, ancient medicine should be directly compared to the treatment of care. And I'm not saying it cures cancer. It's not against chemotherapy. But if you were using, let's say, an antiemetic, which is an anti-nausea drug, versus acupuncture, you would have a better view of whether acupuncture works as well as the antiemetic medicine. And the truth is, those medicines don't work that well, particularly for women, which is horrible. So in our handout, we have, like, for example, the use of ginger tea, not with sugar, because we don't go with with ginger candy because there's so much sugar in it. But ginger tea, unsweetened, would be really helpful in reducing nausea. Another thing that works is peppermint oil. I travel with a little vial of peppermint oil, and I have seen people. I've been on a boat. I was on a boat just a few years ago in Australia, and I could see this Asian woman was sweating and she was pale, and I walked over to her waving my bottle. I didn't put it under her nose because I didn't know her. But as I walked closer, she smelled it, and she just brightened up immediately, and she grabbed my hand and she put it under her own nose, and then was able to walk to the railing, because that's where you're supposed to be when you're seasick. And it was astounding because it worked instantly for somebody who was in real trouble, real distress. I use it myself. And the reason that I know that peppermint oil works was because when I was visiting my acupuncturist, she used to be a massage therapist. And sometimes she would have been given a massage before I got there, and she used peppermint cream, peppermint oil cream. Now, I think it's called Mountain Trip. They had coconut and they had peppermint. So what I noticed was that when I smelled peppermint, the smell of peppermint, my headache from chemical sensitivity felt better. And that was why I knew ahead of time, before even trying it, that it would be effective. And it's really cool when something is shown to you, and then you find all the evidence that goes along with it. So peppermint really works. So do all the things that I've talked about, and all the things that we talked about on our website and our handout. Our website, AnnieAppleseedProject.org. And I encourage people to visit there, and also our Facebook page, which is also Annie Appleseed Project.
That's wonderful, and I'm glad you mentioned that. The herb kingdom is very powerful kingdom. So we have a lot of different plants, and some of them are more geared toward facing the challenges for cancer and managing than others, but same goes for herbs. Herbs also, there are some herbs that are very powerful, more so than our domesticated foods, and they grow up naturally. So wouldn't it be wonderful if we all learned how to forage in the park around the corner, you know, and take our dandelions and our nettle, you know, and make a salad from the different things that we find there, and just empower our body like that. Because when you talk about the SAD diet, it is the standard American diet that's based upon domesticated foods that are basically genetically modified or sprayed with some kind of contaminant, and you cannot trust that, you know, to protect you and do what it's supposed to do, because it's been contaminated or tampered with and reduced in some kind of capacity from its natural charge was to protect you. So when you eat the eggplant, it's supposed to have those components to protect you. But if it's genetically modified, or if it's grown conventionally, then something's been either added that will contaminate your system, especially if you have sensitivities, chemical sensitivities, or something's been altered in sense of genetically modified organisms, and you have no idea what that's going to do to you as time goes on. You know, even in your future generations, if you eat genetically modified things. And so when we talk about food, we also have to talk about the meat and what's in the meat, and are they addressing that whole industry as well? Because we know that they put in certain preservatives in meat. They put in certain dye and colorings that are contaminating it. And they put in certain preservatives and fresheners.
Antibiotics and hormones, big issue.
Yeah, and also the growth hormones. The growth hormones that they're putting into the meat is getting into our system and creating anomalies there with our children. And you can see how, you know, how big these children are. They're going through changes younger and younger and younger. And so we have to be careful of that and take it back to the organics. But organics is not the term that it's made of today. Organic just means fresh, natural, uninterrupted, you know, qualified food, you know.
Well, we like to think it's not sprayed. That's the thing, the chemical spraying. You know, in fact, we certify the organic food growers. We should be certifying the companies that spray, and they should be able to tell us in the supermarket what chemicals were sprayed. We can make much better choices if we saw that. And I bet people would think twice about buying it if they saw the 4 or 5 chemicals that each piece of fruit or vegetable was sprayed with. It's a horror story. Too many chemicals. Too many chemicals. You know, before you mentioned onions and garlic and meat, and they're wonderful things to use when you saute food. I mean, avoid deep frying, but if you saute anything along with onions or garlic or leeks, they make a difference in reducing the free radicals. That's a very healthy step in cooking. And always avoid a microwave. Avoid.
Yeah, I definitely want to get some some culinary artists on board, you know, with the series, because we need to know, our caregivers need to know, our cancer patients need to know, well, how does all this information, you know, get compiled in our kitchen and on our stove and in our oven or on the grill? You know, how does that translate into what am I going to eat today? So we talk about these food deserts where you don't have the money to purchase organic and you don't have the space to grow anything organic. What I do over here in my little neck of the woods in Pottstown is I teach people how to do container gardening. I teach people how to put up a, a rack or something, a hanging basket or something, put some tomatoes in that and allow the tomatoes to trail down. Instead of having a hanging basket of flowers, now you have a hanging basket of tomatoes, you know, instead of having a container of beautiful, delicious looking flowers, now you have a container of thyme or parsley or rosemary even, you know, that's beautiful, decorative, and you can eat it, you know. Bell peppers can grow in a pot. So I do a lot of teaching on that also, because it's a difference in when you can take something out of the earth and put it into your mouth. Immediately, that starts to work on you. It's food. It might not be a bagel with cream cheese or peanut butter, but it's something way different. And that food matriculates into information in your body to protect you and to sustain you. So we're getting full off of junk food. We're getting full off of things that is actually creating an anomaly in our body, so that we have to go to the medical community to find out, well, how to get rid of it. And then they want to take it out. That we need everything. We need everything that we were equipped with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true.
And so we're going to definitely check out Carla DeRosa in Atlanta on the Base Food Raw Project. Okay, and perfect. She would be absolutely perfect. I want to talk to you about these food deserts, though, because it's important for people who are watching to know that even though you might have grocery stores or convenience stores or restaurants around you, you might be living in a food desert where that food is not giving you the nutrition that you need. So are there any resources that we can go to that talk about the food deserts? Because I know that there's been research done on it recently.
Yeah, so that's really an interesting thing. It was discovered years ago, and I think stores like 7-Eleven, which are in lower socioeconomic communities, poorer communities, people with less disposable income, less money to spend on food, they now actually have bananas and apples and I think oranges in the stores. So that's a great development. I noticed also that the supermarkets that are in poorer communities tend to have higher prices. Everything's backwards. But there are food co-ops, and there are groups that fund food co-ops, nonprofits, and a search of the internet on food co-ops will yield that information, and people can take it into their own control. That's how the Brooklyn Food Co-op started, which is one of the most famous co-ops, and Berkeley, California also has a very well-known one. People said, hey, we need food here, we're going to act on our own, we're going to set it up, and it can be done. That's one way to do it. Also, there are now food trucks that bring in fruits and vegetables for a very small farmer's market, and they bring it into all communities, and that can be arranged as well. You can bring one of them into your community. It just requires some people to step up. Probably it will come through churches because they're the most active in most communities and arrange for it. But it's a great idea. It's simple, and all you need to do is have a truck come on, a few days a week, because not everybody's off on the weekend, so it has to be sometime during the week as well. But the opportunity to buy fruits and vegetables off a food truck or a small farm market, it's a great development. A small food co-op. I worked in a food co-op this is before I became a vegan, the cheese buyer, and it was really great. It was in Lower Manhattan, and it was with people who didn't have a lot of money, and we managed. We worked it out so that we were able to supply really excellent food to people who needed it, myself included, because I was unemployed at the time, underemployed. And that, can make a great difference in people's lives. We can't give up. Every parent wants to do what's right for their kids, and they've got to stick to that idea, and it can be done. It can be done in their community. Like I said, maybe it's through the churches, maybe it's through the schools, or some other community organization. But getting either a small food co-op going, a small food truck program, or a small farmer's market, it would be great for everybody. Great development.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And then when we're creating that grocery list, we go back and we watch Dr. Furman. Dr. Furman came on earlier in the program. He talked about G bombs. I love the way he makes the terminology. He just creates his own term and he runs with it. That's beautiful, because those types of things stick in your brain. Okay, it's a cute term. We can remember it. It's quick and it's fast. It's easy. G-bomb. Okay, garlic, mushrooms, onions, and whatever else it was.
Exactly.
And we just, when we go to the grocery store, we have G-bombs on on the list. When you talk about super immunity, you have to just understand that it's that easy. When you talk about food deserts, you have to understand that, you can change that. You can change that. I'm sitting in Philadelphia right now. Okay, West Philadelphia. Around the corner in this urban neighborhood are two, maybe four houses can sit in this lot. So instead of having the lot there, whenever they want to bring the houses back, that's fine. But hey, why not just take it from the government and say, hey, we want to build a garden here and have the opportunity to have fresh tomatoes, have fresh kale, something that the neighborhood can come and eat these fresh products.
Great idea, definitely.
Yeah, so those have to be community-based projects, and I really want to make sure that that's mentioned here, because a lot of times we say, okay, well, what are organizations doing about this? What are institutions doing about that? What is this person, that person, or the other doing about my situation? This is my child, my community, my neighborhood. What am I doing about that situation? And I think when we turn it all around and we start to take accountability for our own our own neighborhoods and property and our own programs, when we get back to that community-based relationship building environment, it'll be different. But right now, everybody is basically alone. They're basically dealing with things by themselves. And that's really not the way the world, it does not, nothing happens that way. So we talk about networks. And I'm so glad that, we're building this relationship, you and I, because we're talking about changing the way people think, changing the idea of how our culture has been really whitewashed, and instead of continuing to go down that road, we are being advocates of change.
Yeah.
So that's why I love that in your bio. Just to be sure that we get to this part here, I wanted to talk about a little bit about the Annie Appleseed project itself and CAM. What is CAM? What is its effectiveness, and how can we access it? How can we find you? Can you talk about your organization, where you are, how to get to you, how you disseminate information also is important.
Okay, so yeah, we have a very active website, annieappleseedproject.org, and we're on Facebook, facebook.com/AnnieAppleseedProject. CAM is complementary and alternative medicine. So in the old days, everything was confused and they combined them. But really, complementary means along with conventional treatment. So if you're dealing with a headache and you take an aspirin, but you also put some Tiger Balm on your temples, that's complementary medicine. If you go to get acupuncture, that's still considered alternative or holistic medicine. I like holistic because, as my husband said a million years ago, alternative just sounds like it's so far away from what we're doing. So we like to call it holistic. But in any case, what we do on our website is show the evidence. And we've also, in the last years, started doing conferences every year. We host a conference in West Palm Beach. It's very interesting. We have between 12 and 16 speakers. We get about 250 people. We serve organic meals. We do fresh squeezed juice. We have a yoga class. Everything's free except once you pay the entry. Sorry, we'd love to have everything free the way it is on the website, but our services are free, but our conference can't be. But we also have a scholarship program, and we help people who have advanced cancer come to the conference. People who are unpaid advocates come to the conference. but we don't have the kind of money that pharma has, so we can't give 100% scholarship. We do what we can. And people benefit from it. When you interact with a crowd of people who everybody has a little piece of the puzzle, the way you and I do, we're talking about our little pieces, and it comes together, it makes a fabulous finished puzzle. Really great. Very, great information about doctors who are doing complementary and holistic treatments. People who've done them, our patient panels, the most popular segment we have. And it usually involves like 3 or 4 people who are speaking about their truths. Now, one of the things that bugs me the most about our pharmaceutical setup is that the pharmaceutical industry has decreed that my personal story is the least important part of evidence there is. And I don't agree with that. When we hear the personal stories of people, it's as moving and as powerful as can be. And before I understood science, I used to say, if it worked for one person, it can work for someone else. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's true. Nothing's 100%. I said there were no cure. There were cures, maybe. There's certainly there's ways to get healthier and to live with cancer, because right now we live, today's our day, we're both alive, our audience is alive, and that's what we dwell on. Tomorrow takes care of itself when we get there, if we get there. And that's okay with me. I'm living right now and it's going well. So our organization, I brought with me, I don't know if you all can see it, but this is what we produced as a booklet from our last conference, our 13th. So it's got about 50 pages of information. And the last page, the last group of pages has our natural strategies on reducing treatment risks. And shall I tell people how to find that as the free gift?
Yes, please. And if you can just hold it up very still for one more moment.
Okay. When you see this postcard on our website and you click on it, it will lead you to all the handouts. It's a yellow postcard with 3 squares on it. The other way is to search. The upper right-hand corner has a green search bar, and you just put the word handout, HANDOUT, on our website, annieappleseedproject.org. And you can find all our handouts. We have constipation, we have chemo brain, we have how to do a coffee enema, and the one that we have 2, one for families of children and one for adults on how to reduce treatment toxicities. And we show you citations of evidence that have appeared in journals. And there's a lot of evidence for natural medicine, a lot. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies. But it doesn't, because money doesn't flow to natural products, you don't get a gigantic study like you do for drugs. But I call it the preponderance of evidence. When you have several hundred studies showing the same thing, the benefit, that's good enough for me. And then again, we have our people's stories and we hear them and we know that people have benefited. There's nothing special about me. The things that worked for me, it can work for other people. There's no reason that it was just me who benefited. Natural medicine works.
Yes, and the thing about it is, it's not even medicine. It is food. And that is what the most amazing thing about it is. It's food, it's delicious, it's sustaining, and it's absolutely free. When you talk about the enormous amount of money that people are spending on treatments and therapy and this and that, taking a stretch in the morning, is absolutely free. The vitamin D that you get from the sun is absolutely free. The vitamin C in an orange is absolutely free, So depending upon where you live, you get different vegetation that comes up in those different regions. But what you have to do is get a scientist or find some information and find out in your region, what is in those vegetables, that vegetation, those herbs that are coming up? Because in a lot of cases, the herbs are more packed with nutrients than the vegetables are and the fruits are. So you have these different things like purslane and dandelion and broadleaf and narrowleaf plantain and curly dock and what is this chickweed and all of these different things that the pharmaceutical companies know about them because they extract what they need for their medicines. They extract it from the weeds, So I'd really like to get someone on here to talk about the weeds and what we should be really embracing more so as we go into these food deserts and the lack of quality food, you know, so we can fortify our own food and it can be free to those who would normally not be able to afford it, you know.
Great. It's great. On our site, if you can search any topic, and herbs or spices are there. We've covered lots and lots of articles. As you know, there's a ton of evidence about the benefit, and it makes sense. It's been around for thousands of years, and people have used it for their health. Obviously, that's what the medicine was prior. It's great, and I like the idea of finding things in nature. You have to live in an area where you can do that. If you live in a city, you're not going to find it, but anywhere else can be. No, I was just visiting a friend in Germany, and she had a meal. Every single thing was she found by taking a walk in the woods. Everything was amazing. You know, it was really beautiful, and she had a garden too, so she could fill in. It was great.
So I think that our connection with nature is going to really help to change things around also, and having these types of conversations and talking to people like yourself, survivors, warriors who are fit for the challenge to say, no, doc, that doesn't make sense to me, and I'll see you when I see you, you know, and turn around and walk out the door, you know, because there are people out here like yourself. I so appreciate you sharing this knowledge, you building that website, but more so than anything, you understanding that nature is powerful and it can take care of itself. You've done a wonderful job. You look so beautiful and you look so happy. I thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your suggestions. We'll definitely be visiting your Appleseed project.org very soon and put that in our arsenal. We can put it right up on the refrigerator, you know, and make it visible, you know, so we can always go back to that resource. Always have it top of mind, like those G-bombs and super immunity, you know, different things like that make a wonderful impact on our lives and our children. So thank you so much, Ann Fonfa. It was a pleasure as always, and we'll be talking again really soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.